Welcome to the Relentless Minds podcast with Lori Jimenez, a platform where influential entrepreneurs get real and share their stories of challenges in life that they've had to face head on and conquer in order to be where they are today. Here, you'll get an inside look at the adversities that these individuals have experienced or are currently dealing with, in addition to their opinions on real life matters and philosophies in life. Most importantly, you'll learn what it takes to have a relentless mind so that you too can stay headstrong in your pursuit of a better future. In this podcast, you're going to get 100% authenticity from people that have figured out how to beat the noise that society creates and have a higher level of self-mastery. Hi, welcome back to the Relentless Minds podcast. Today I have with me Dr. Ellie Katz. Dr. Ellie Katz is a leading practitioner of holistic psychotherapy. For the last 40 years, her eclectic interventions have featured innovative approaches to using meditation, guided thinking, and the Bach Flower Remedies. With decades of working in the field, Dr. Ellie Katz has concluded that self-sabotage is part of the human condition and that we all have attachments we'd be better without. In her writing, as author of 3 books, Dr. Katz sets out to tackle the everyday face of addiction, exploring root causes, personal struggles, and the gift of recovery. Dr. Katz, thank you so much for being here today. How are you?
I'm fine. It's my pleasure, Lori.
So
what are we going to talk about today?
We are going to talk about your expertise in helping people go from addiction to recovery. And I know that right now you're working in a rehab center, right? And you're actually in Israel. So you're working at a rehab center in Israel. Is that right?
Yes, it's a true story.
Yeah. How are you liking that?
I've been here about 16 years, and it's my passion. I love the work. I love it every day. It's interesting and different. Every one of the patients here has a different story. It's never boring or dull. And it's a challenge to help people walk through the tunnel of light to get out of that mess. Big mess.
Yeah. You work with all sorts of conditions, right? Obsessive disorders,
Sure.
addictions, and like even low self-esteem and low confidence and things like that.
Well, for sure. And we don't differentiate between the addictions. Mm-hmm. You could be working with someone who's addicted to another person, someone who's addicted to their phobia, someone who's addicted to a substance, or irrespective of what you're addicted to, and it's got a hold on you, and we know how to work with that, how to give you the inspiration and hope to live life in a different way.
So tell me about that. Tell me about the approaches. You're saying that it's all, you don't differentiate between these addictions when it comes to treating them though. And we were speaking about this beforehand, but how you have human tendencies, right? Human conditions that oftentimes will lead to these obsessive or addictive personalities or actions. So when it comes to treating that, can you explain a little bit more about what, in your experience, you've been able to see helps?
Okay. What helps is first to help people understand that change is possible. Many people come here quite beaten by their lives, by the ridiculous situations they've gotten into, by life-threatening things that have happened, and many of them have overdosed, and of course the next day gone and looked for the next fix. People have amassed huge gambling debts. Everyone is angry with them, but they go on, whether it's scratching the lottery ticket or finding a casino or betting which ant will walk faster across the room than the other ant. put some money on that. Everybody has to believe that they can get better. That's bottom line. Everybody has to have hope and optimism. Since the future doesn't exist, why think it couldn't be better?
Mm.
And I'm into, if you see my book, When Sane People Do Insane Things, I've broken it down to what I think are 6 essential building blocks to your health and well-being. And the first one is good mood. You have to harness good mood. You have to build up an arsenal of things that make you happy, that keep you afloat spiritually and psychologically with a sense of hope and enthusiasm and want to do this. You know, many people are excited about something and then that excitement dies down, and where are they? I don't want to do it. It'll never work.
Yeah.
I've seen so many relapses. Why bother? Takes a long time. There's a lot of deprivation. I don't want to be sober. Why are you dragging me into this? That happens too. But if you're in a good mood and you're enthusiastic and you're hopeful and you're inspired, because the people that are working with you, the counselors and other parts of the staff, are many of them recovered addicts. So wait a minute. If he could do it, maybe I could do it.
Yeah.
There it is.
Absolutely. So that's the first of the 6 steps.
That's the first of the 6 essentials. The second one is relaxation, because if you're wild, if you can't quiet your mind, then you're going to be running scripts all day about the past, about the future, nothing about now. And you're full of anxiety, full of shame, and there you are getting nowhere.
Gotcha. And that's why one of your approaches makes sense is meditation, because meditation is so important in regarding calming your mind, staying focused, having your being present, right, with what is going on in front of you, and you know how to approach that and having that in that moment. Do you mind sharing the other 4 steps? You've mentioned good mood, relaxation.
So love and kindness. Love and kindness. There's so much hatred. There's so much negativity in the world. People aren't kind. There's so many factions. There's so many historical feuds, borders, national pride. You did this to me, I can't forgive you, kind of thing. And we're very suspicious of strangers. What does that person want from me? And I'm out there talking about love and kindness because it's so nourishing. It's such a gorgeous environment. It promotes the best things on the planet when you're loving and kind and smiling and caring. It's gorgeous.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
You don't usually hear psychologists talking about that, but I'm definitely promoting it.
What do you think about the approach of focusing on a pain point? Because I've heard people out there saying you have to make the pain to not act hard or more intense than it would be to act, because making these changes and, you know, obviously the relapse and or having to deal with just staying away from what you want, like these addictions, right? It's hard to do. It can be physically painful. So what do you think about that? Because that also...
I've never heard this expression,
really?
Pain point. No, or I've never heard of that. No, I'm not familiar with it.
Uh-huh.
So if you want to explain that to me, or we want to go to another dimension, we're fine. I've never heard of the expression pain point.
So
Sounds
there's
new.
there's just some people that they say about focusing on the pain that it's causing you to be addicted to this, or to be following your course in life, where you're an aggressive person, and or like if you're not financially stable, and the discomfort that that causes. So, but your approach is more so about love and kindness, and about making that your focus
Sure.
in order for
Rather
that to be
than,
healing.
although, Lori, it is very important if something doesn't give you peace of mind because you can't get over the shame of what you've done, that you're carrying terrible, terrible guilt or trauma, then of course that's your pain. But we
Absolutely.
don't focus on that
Mhm.
because everybody's got pain, everybody's been humiliated, everybody has had failure in their life, everyone has had disappointment, shock and trauma, of course, part of being alive. Some people's way of handling it is to alter their mind. So, mind altering
Mhm.
substances, drinking or smoking pot or whatever, or people are terribly, terribly bored, or people are oversexed and all involved with that. It's hard to say that everyone has to find their pain and then their addiction will evaporate.
Mhm.
No.
Yeah, that's a good point. That's a very good point, because the pain is what's causing them to stay in that addiction and stay in that life pattern, right?
Well, what happens with addiction is it gets a life of its own. So, what initially caused you to turn to heroin, to make such an extreme life choice, the reason becomes irrelevant because you have to serve the devil, that master, to
Mhm.
keep using heroin because getting off of it is so horrible.
Gotcha. Gotcha. And so just to go back to these six, because I actually want to continue on what you were mentioning about
Sure.
this addiction. Number four from your
Number
6 points.
4 is forgiveness. And this is a very hard one to master. Very hard to master. People don't forgive themselves. People don't forgive
Mhm.
other people. They hold on to grudges. You started it. It's unforgivable. And ultimately, that's going to hold you back. Your grudges, your righteous indignation, your memory, the unforgivable. And again, with yourself, you could be relentlessly unforgiving
And I want to
because
tap
you
into that.
did such terrible things.
Yes. Yep. Yep.
So you're not going to let yourself off the spiritual hook.
Incredible. Number five.
Number 5 is flexibility. You can't change if you're not flexible. If you're rigidly adhering to the thing that you know, even if it's horrible, but it's familiar, it's what you
Yes.
do. It's what you do. So it is rigid. It has no flexibility. It's not sometimes take it or leave it. It's always do it.
Mm,
So to change, you need to be very malleable and very flexible. And
perfect.
the sixth of the six essentials is discipline.
Mm,
Because if you're enthusiastic at the beginning and it's a new project and it sounds really jazzy and you're full of hope and you're full of expectations and you don't have the discipline to go the distance, like you're bored, like, oh, this is tedious, oh, this again, oh, sobriety, Oh, it means I can't use.
Mm.
Keep it. I'd
Stage.
rather use. This is boring. I don't want to do this. So I haven't got the discipline. I haven't got the flexibility. I can't forgive myself. So why am I even bothering? I don't feel loving and kind. I feel angry. My mind can't quiet down. And what's there to be happy about? So that's
Wow.
all the reverse of the six essentials, which I call the inner saboteurs or the six hazards. And we all are familiar with all versions of this. We know it well.
That's incredible. I love that. So you were able, obviously, with your experience and treating patients, you were able to see what broke them down and what caused them to not progress. And then just,
Sure.
those are the things that they need just to do the opposite of. So they
Yes.
need to be able to have that good, put themselves in a good mood, be happy, be excited, right? And then be able to quiet their mind, which is number two, put themselves in a state of relaxation.
Sure.
And number three is love and kindness and having that emotion, that happy and loving emotion towards the world, towards others, towards themselves, which goes into number four, which is forgiveness.
Mm-hmm.
And then number five is having the flexibility of switching up their daily routines, right? Not just sticking
You
to
bet.
what they know and what they've been doing that's been leading them in the same course. And then number six is discipline, is to stick with their goal
Yeah.
and with the productive steps that they've been taking towards recovery.
Absolutely. Absolutely. But unfortunately, the statistics are not that impressive. People drop out a lot, or people finish, and then there are those anxieties or triggers, and maybe you're feeling lonely and things are not working out, and then you go back to what's familiar, that self-soothing, which turns into a self-sabotage. Because once you're acting against your greater good, you're sabotaging your chances to
Hmm.
ever feel like a person you admire.
Hmm. Why do you think that is? Why do you think that self-sabotage is, like you say, it seems to be part of the human condition?
Because we need to comfort ourselves. And if you haven't learned how to comfort yourself properly, how to speak to yourself with great love and respect, if you don't know how to be your own internal cheerleader, you're going to go back to your old ways.
Hmm. And do you think that in itself is a problem that goes back to, like, the root causes of that could be family related, like background, cultural?
Any number of things. But again, the most powerful is, oh, when I do that, I don't care. When I get stoned like that, I don't give a damn.
Mm-hmm.
When I get drunk like that or whatever, and obviously it isn't going to work because the next minute that you finish doing it, and then what?
Mm-hmm.
I remember once, um, I have four children, thank God, and
Beautiful.
one of them was really angry with mommy, and she slammed the door. And I said to one of my sons, I'm going to go knock on her door. And he said to me, Mom, and then what? I said, what do you mean, and then what? I'm going to knock on her door. He said, but if you don't know and then what, don't knock on her door.
Huh.
You have no plan. So when people relapse, they think, oh man, I'm gonna smoke that joint and I'm gonna feel good and I'm not gonna care that she insulted me or that I just lost my job. I'm not gonna care.
Yeah.
Yeah, but when it's over, and then what?
And then what? Exactly. Exactly. And then you don't think, hey, in the long run, it's affecting you.
No, of course not.
more than anything. Yeah, they don't think that far. And I think that's just human nature.
Just take this simple example of um, the overeater, okay? The compulsive overeater. Food is a benign substance. It's something you do from the first day of life till you die. You have to eat. We have demonized food. We have mythologized food with all the cooking shows and all the restaurants and all the
Huh.
advertising. Okay, and lots of people get addicted to sugar and flour and oil and whatever. Okay,
Yes.
it's a nothing thing, but people, when they're addicted to food, always think that they're going to feel better with the Oreos. They're going to feel better when they eat the pint of Haagen-Dazs. But when they finish eating it, it's a very short high. Then what?
Yeah. Yep. It feels good while you're doing it.
Yeah,
And
while you're doing it,
then at the end it's you feel horrible and you feel
you
guilty.
feel horrible, you feel guilty because you would just announce to everybody that for the wedding of your niece, you're going to lose 20 pounds. And uh-oh, you're got your face in the Haagen-Dazs or the Ben and Jerry's, and then you lie to yourself and you go tomorrow I'm not doing this again.
Goodness.
Ah,
And you
you
do.
do. Of course you
And
do.
it's interesting though, because I never even thought about that, how, um, especially in America, how they just put so much attention and emphasis on food, right? With all of the commercials, with all of the advertisements and the huge, large platters of food, and how it's just
Oh,
like giving you, like telling you, like, this is what life is about, like just eating your heart out.
okay. And then do I have to mention beauty and sexuality?
Yeah.
It's all over the place. It's all over the place. I was on my way to work today and I was driving and I saw from the back this girl bouncing down the street. And she had beautiful long hair. I guess she had it straightened. And she was wearing these tight jeans and little tank top. And she was just bouncing down the road. And I thought, gee, I'm 70. When I grew up, somebody who looked like that was looking for trouble.
Yeah. It's true. Yeah, and nowadays, because people want to start dressing like that,
Yeah,
they
like a
normalize.
12-year-old. A 12-year-old wants to dress like that. Or these new kind of short shorts with half your tush hanging out. I
I
can't
know,
believe my eyes.
I
I
know,
can't believe my eyes.
I know.
I
It's
must be, in my old age, I'm getting conservative.
no, I absolutely understand you, and it's just because like it's being put out there on like online on TV. It's just becoming
I
normalized
know.
at this point, and it is worrisome to see
You
where
better
things can
believe
go.
it, Lori. Look, I live in Israel and there are many religious Jewish people here. They will not allow a smartphone. They have something called kosher phones. There's no internet on it. There's no seductive stuff or in any way something that would endanger their mind.
Yes,
But regular cell phones today, you can see pornography. You
absolutely.
don't have to go to the porn shop and sneak in. You're there. It's in your hand. That
Yes.
sounded a little frisky. It's in your hand.
You're so funny. But you mentioned a good thing, a good point, because as a host on this podcast, um, we're talking about addictions to habits that break you down, right? They're just kind of they
They
can ruin your
ruin
life.
your life.
They
They
can ruin your
ruin your
life.
life.
But also on the other end, even about that resilience, right? And that like relentless mindset towards
Mhm.
achieving something can also be
Okay.
detrimental, right? Like people who work 14, 15 hours a day every
Okay.
day, don't get any sleep, and they're just zeroed in. That's kind of the same thing, would you say, like an addiction?
Okay. So, of course, you can be addicted to work. It's called workaholic. And you can be addicted to people, and it's called codependence, or it's called stalking.
Mm.
And it's pretty scary stuff. It's just not being in balance. It's unharmonious. I wanted to tell you that I'm here many, many years at the rehab. And there was a time when the men that I worked with were alcoholics and drug addicts. Many of them had been thieves. Many of them had been in jail for years. Today, at least half of my male patients are gamblers.
Wow.
And most of their gambling is the lottery tickets. They're not
Yeah.
even at the races. They're not even at the casino.
No.
They're either with the lottery or they're gambling on their telephones.
Yep. Yep. It's that addictive. I mean, and I've kind of seen this. It's like an addictive personality, right? Like whatever it is that they go into, it seems like they just go in with like laser focus and they just, and it doesn't, like it's still damaging to you,
Oh,
but they still do it. Like I've seen that also with even people that I've gotten to know personally that were before um, drug alcohol or drug addicts or alcoholics, and then they switch, they find their savior in fitness, and then like they're fitness extremists and they're just doing it every
sure.
day for hours a day, and it's
Yeah.
like the like weighing all their meals, tracking all their meals, like
Okay,
every
so
little.
I have that with my anorexic girls, mostly women. They weigh and measure their food. They know exactly how to burn the calories of what they just ate.
Hmm.
And they're relentless about being thin
Hmm.
and being in control, but they're in fact completely out of control. It's a tricky kind of irony here because they want to be in control of their food, of their intake, of their calorie output, of their musculature, and they think they're in control, but they don't have a negotiable relationship with any of this. They
Hmm.
can't take it or leave it or stop doing it. They're committed to their addiction.
Yeah. You know, it's crazy. And you know, you mentioning this about like the control, having to have control. Like these qualities I've seen that people have, like having to be in control of things and having to have everything be a certain way, or having a codependency. Like I've seen patterns, and I'm no doctor. I've seen patterns in that with their upbringing, with family issues, with
Mm.
a lack of control when they were growing up because their father was very oppressive, and it was just a lot of just turmoil growing up. So now
Mm.
in their adulthood, they've just, you know, it's become a self-sabotage, and they're just have a detrimental lifestyle. You know, some people react differently. Some people see that and they're like, I'm going to have a positive life and I'm going to make something out of my life. But then some people, you know, in these patterns I've seen, it's like, you know, lack of control when you're younger means, or it turns into a obsession with control when you're older.
Mm.
And it's just, it is a shame because it's like, that's hard stuff to try to dig into,
Sure.
right?
Well,
And
it's a real waste of a life. And people that don't get help will continue to live that way.
yeah, and if they don't get help, they just, do you, I feel and I wonder, it's like, can they figure out, can they do it themselves? Or is it, do you think it's
No,
always the best? Okay.
no, I don't believe it at all. Look, you're struggling in America with a wild opioid addiction mess. And often it it happens that you're either sick and you have terrible pain, or you've been in an accident and you're prescribed painkiller, which thank God helps you with your pain. And then you end up very committed to the
Mhm.
medication. And then from the medication, you'll buy it in the street. You don't need a prescription because people are very happy to sell it to you, and the dealers are passing it out, and then you're, addicted. And you don't look like the type who would be addicted to heroin, but there you are. And there you are. And it becomes your master, and you give up your entire life for it. But I must say that the gamblers have also given up their lives, because without money, how does this? You don't have a life.
You don't really
And
think
you've
about
already, you don't think about consequences. You're totally disconnected from consequences. And any gambler will tell you they're not gambling their money anymore because they don't have their money. So they give you a con job and a promise and a story, and they become really, really horrible human beings. It becomes terrible, terrible, distorted personalities. The gamblers, they're lying so. They're so slick because they need your money to be able to gamble the next horse race or the next lottery.
So for all of these people, so those were, you were saying previously, recovered patients, right? Or were they just people that left? The ones that you've seen that were gamblers?
The people that gamblers are in my rehab. They're in the rehab.
Okay.
They're in the rehab up to debts, up to their eyeballs. They've left their wife and kids, and people are banging on the door, threatening them. It's a horror. It's a horror. Everybody's mad at the gamblers. Look, everybody's mad at the heroin addict. What are you doing with your life? Everybody's mad at the bulimic, anorexic girl who's completely thrown away her life in service to a morbid fear of weighing more than 42 pounds.
What are the experiences, the breakthroughs that you've been able to be witness of working with
that's
individuals?
in my book called Love and Kisses from My Padded Cell. Yep. In that book, I write the stories of 10 individuals, men and women, boys and girls, whatever, who have gone on the journey to redemption, to sanity. They've been in recovery and have lived to tell the tale.
And can you give us one of those?
Those are 100% true stories. I mean, I have those 10 stories, and then when sane people do insane things, I have many, many stories. I like telling the story. Then I have a book I wrote called My Last Summer as a Fat Girl, which is my autobiography about being a fat girl.
And so you have 3 books, which I saw, and that's on your website, which is elliekatz.com. So people can go on there and they can find the book. You have a short little bio at the bottom, and they can a little summary, and then they can also purchase it. It's available on Amazon.
Yeah.
And so you've got 3 books: Love and Kisses from My Padded Cell, and that one has the collection of personal stories of 10 recovering addicts. Right.
Yeah.
And then when sane people do insane things, you provide there that you include in that your 6 behavioral principles, the ones that we mentioned at the beginning of how somebody can turn their life around. These are 6 steps that people can even start to do on their own,
Yeah, of course.
But you do recommend, especially with these more intense addictions, for people to always look for help. And then your last book is My Last Summer as a Fat Girl, and this one's actually your memoir, and it's also mentions about the power of the food and how it's had a big influence in your own life.
Sure.
Right. Those are 3 books that you have available on your website. And I wanted to ask you in regards to these stories, and you can actually give us a summary of one of them, of an experience, maybe one that kind of stood out to you the most of somebody who had an addiction, a severe addiction, and was able to transform their life? Because it is a possibility, you know, and even though, and I think that we've brought a lot of attention to show that these addictions are real, they're not easy to work out of, but
Oh,
it's completely possible. It just requires a lot of will and discipline. And so if you could just share a story with us about something that you've personally experienced being at the rehab center.
my personal experience about somebody else.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So I write about a man named Monty who ends up becoming a gambler and an overeater and a liar and a sex addict. And he comes and he tells his story to me, and we work very hard. And apparently, the root of his story is the image he had of himself as a young boy. His mom was a big con artist. He had a little sister who was born with Down syndrome, and she was always telling people she needed money to take care of this girl and get her the right kind of help. And the story goes on, and he ends up being a gambler and an overeater and a con artist himself and a liar. And his wife even came to work with us, and she looked at him one day and said in front of me, "You made me doubt my sanity." She literally believed all his lies, even when she would make a tray of cookies and he would rearrange the cookies. And she said, "I thought there were more cookies here." And he would say, "No, didn't you realize this is the rose?" And she would look and go, "Yeah, maybe I didn't." And he had a scandalous relationship with a Russian masseuse, and his wife got some kind of a sense of it, and she got a private detective, and she had his phone tapped, and she heard him talking on the phone with this lady, and it was on some odd level rather comical, because he kept saying to the lady in the Russian accent, "What? What?" It sounded like he had a Russian accent. And a lot of work had to be done to rebuild their trust, to reestablish some sense of sanity in that house, in that marriage, in his way of dealing with life. And he turned out okay. He turned out okay. And the story is interesting because he, like many others, had multiple addictions.
Interesting. So that is that common thing, I guess, that, you know, if you have that addictive way of being, you go one thing and then you kind of pick up other ones also.
Well, invariably, if I really scratch the surface on our patients, most people have some kind of thing with food or body image. Most people hate the way they look. And another is an issue with money, and another is an issue with sex. This, these are themes that reverberate, even though ostensibly you're not here for any of that. You're here because you're an alcoholic. But while we're at it, we're going to find out there's a food thing, there's a money thing, there's a sex thing, there's a self-image thing. And there might even be, and this I've noticed over the last years, there might even be some OCD in there.
Control, like obsessive disorder.
Well, like like you have to do something, or it
Mm-hmm.
has to be in that order, or you have to count.
Mm. I think that's a great point to bring out, and I thank you for that because um, it's not just about the action. There is something deeper that people need to tap into
Mm-hmm.
that are causing those actions, right? And I think that meditation and reflection like can start to maybe help someone to really start seeing that, and of course support like family members maybe getting some feedback um, on that. And I know that you also had your own experience, as you mentioned in, or as you wrote in your book, My Last Summer as a Fat Girl,
Sure.
about your own challenges. I think it was specifically about food.
Sure. I mean,
Did you want to talk about?
by the grace of God, I never was a drug addict or an alcoholic. I didn't have those kind of uh, attractions and addictions. But from a very early age, I was eating. I mean, I was eating too much. The, the first allowance I got was a nickel, and I bought a devil dog. I mean, that's how I understood finances and how I understood consumerism.
Mm,
And that's what I wanted to do. My mom didn't have a devil dog at home. I fell in love with it and bought it every day at the candy store on the way to first grade. And
that's-
then, I had to lie about food. And I remember as a little girl growing up that I would go to different people's houses and say my mom and dad aren't home and we didn't have dinner or some kind of nonsense
huh.
to get a little extra something that we didn't have at our house. Sure. I can tell you, Lori, don't faint, that when I was in high school, my mom would sometimes call up my friends and ask if I ate there.
Wow.
She was very involved with my plate. She wanted me to be slim and beautiful and smart, and I was smart. I was beautiful. I wasn't slim.
Hmm.
And, she put me under a lot of pressure with that. A lot of pressure.
Do you feel that that maybe caused you to continue on your course of
You better
overeating?
believe it. Obviously, I'll show her, because that's what a
Mm-hmm.
lot of kids do when somebody pesters them or threatens them or tries to control their relationship with food. They'll sneak it, of course.
Mm-hmm.
And then you spend 30 years of your life getting back at your mother.
And so, how were you able to, later on in life, control that addiction and change your life?
Well, I joined Overeaters Anonymous 26 years ago.
Mm.
I have the same sponsor for 25 years, and I'm in the program, and I
Wonderful.
love it, and I believe it. It's very, very smart, very spiritually expanded, very psychologically uh, masterpiece.
Mm-hmm.
12-step recovery, and virtually any of these addictions can be uh, saved.
Mm-hmm. And
And
changed.
you bet, through working the 12 steps.
So they have a 12-step figure or 12-step
It's
approach.
12-step approach. And that's how I live my life today. And also as a meditator. Lori, I've meditated every day of my life for 47 years.
Hmm. Meditation is so powerful. Meditation is the key to being able to really set the tone and to get your mindset right and to really be present with what you need to
That
be doing.
changed my life 47 years ago.
Meditation. How
Absolutely.
what's your approach to meditation? Like how long do you meditate for? What is it that you
I
think about?
meditate every morning for 20 minutes, transcendental meditation. And then a number of other times during the day, I could be meditating, because when I do my guided thinking, when I help my patients through altered states of consciousness, I'm meditating and speaking at the same time.
Huh. And this guided thinking is one of your innovative
One of the
approaches.
techniques in the book, I mean, when same people doing same things, there are innumerable techniques that I
Wonderful.
offer. Just take them,
Perfect.
use them. Yeah,
Perfect. So you talk about your approaches in order to really get your mind right and help with these tendencies, right? That we don't want to have these attachments, even like to work all that out, maybe to start. You have those techniques in your book, When Sane People Do Insane Things.
sure.
Wonderful. Thank you for that. That's amazing. That's a
Um,
wonderful thing. And I read your website and um, your even the blog about being on podcasts, that your inspiration is to be able to spread your word and what you're doing to help
right.
people to the world, right? To reach more audiences. And so, and you have three amazing books for people to be able to just get, all of that information right there in their hands.
I hope that happens because that's all I care about is to hoist up the spirit of humanity and in some way make the world a better place to be in and not
Absolutely.
a place where people are choking to death on whoppers or what are
Mm-hmm.
they called? Or choking to death on being afraid to live where they live because there are bombs being dropped,
Mm-hmm.
or choking on their reality that they are refugees and they're being refused entrance to anywhere in the world that might be a safe haven. The world has gotten very crappy
Mm-hmm.
and it's also gotten very gorgeous. And we want to stay with the gorgeous,
Yes,
expand the gorgeous, and have a life worth living.
absolutely. Yeah.
Have a life that you created that you're proud of.
Yep. Yep. Because life has become now, society has become now. They've provided so many opportunities now to progress in life, to have a beautiful life with your family where you can enjoy more things. But with the same token, has come more issues like with social media, like adding to self-esteem issues and self-love, and just
Sure.
has it's become more complex,
Yes.
I can say. But that
And more stinky and scary and weird and more spiritual and loving.
exactly, because
So
people are
two
tapping.
big things are happening.
Yep. And I think that it might be in a way um, learning to handle the complexities in
Sure.
life that are coming, because life used to be so simple, right? There wasn't all of these extra ways of thinking and teachings and all
Yes.
of the job opportunities and all of that before. Like, it was much simpler. And so now, as life becomes more complicated, I feel maybe a lot of people can't keep up. People don't know how to cope. And then it just becomes overwhelming. So I don't know. Hopefully, yes, with time, we can start providing, like you're providing, these services for people. There are coaches out there online also providing help for people. And so hopefully, with that, we can all start to learn how to really live an abundant and beautiful life.
I
Um,
say to that, hallelujah.
yeah,
You know
yeah.
what hallelujah means in Hebrew? It
Uh,
means praise
Praise the
God.
Lord. Love it. Ha
Hallelujah.
is God, right? Ha is like the
Oh,
name,
Yah is
the name.
God.
Hmm. Yes.
Yeah. So anything that has that Yah
Oh,
sound,
gotcha. Okay, it was on the wrong side.
that's okay. That's okay.
Wonderful. Well, Dr.
Lori,
Katz,
wow.
I appreciate the conversation today. It's been honestly like one of the most down to earth, genuine conversations I've had here on this podcast. And
Thank you
I
so
just,
much.
I love that you're coming now online to share your wisdom, expertise, and your love for others, because I mean, and I genuinely feel that love is what makes the world go round. Love is what the world does not have enough of, and it needs more of. And so I encourage you to
Do
keep
you want
going.
me to break out into song? What the world needs now is love, sweet love. That's
I
the
love that
only
song.
thing that there's just too little
Little
of.
Yes. Oh
That's what
man.
you were doing.
That'll be your intro song for this episode.
Thanks a bunch. Thanks so
Absolutely.
much.
And so
Thank you. Thank you. I had so much fun with you.
oh, me too. And just to finish up, I did want to just let everyone know if they wanted to reach out to you and
Mhm.
ask you a question or ask about your books,
You
that
get
they
to my
can
website. Yes,
website.
of course.
Absolutely. So Ellie Katz. So I'll spell that out. It's Ellie, Ellie. Katz is KATZ
One word,
.com.
.com. You
Yep,
bet.
one word. And they can submit a contact form there. It'll go right to you and you can get back
You
to
bet.
them.
Of course. And I will.
Perfect.
I answer everybody.
Oh, absolutely. Thank you so much, Dr. Katz, for being on today. I truly appreciate the time that you spent.
Thank you, Lori. You're a marvelous person.
Thank you.
Keep doing what you're doing.
Thank you.
Bless you.
And to everyone else, thank you so much. Until next time. That concludes this episode. If you enjoyed it, feel inspired, and would like to hear more, please subscribe to the Relentless Minds podcast via the link in the show notes or visit lorijimenez.com. Thank you so much for listening. Until next time.